What?
A box.
Yeah, you want to play with that box?
Yeah.
Yeah. Or should we see what's inside it?
Yeah.
Yeah, all right.
Maybe open it first.
Okay, let's open her up. Here we have the Andersen Ultimate fifth wheel connection, not to be confused with a gooseneck. This is not a true gooseneck adapter in the sense of what Lippert complains about. Here's a picture of that. Most of you are familiar with the Andersen Ultimate, so if you're watching this video, you probably already know what it is and are probably most interested in the version 3 versus the steel version like I have right here. For starters, there's very little information or videos about the steel version of the Andersen online. Some people don't know that they actually have the aluminum, which is the Ultimate. That's the one most people are probably familiar with. And then they have the steel version. And I'm not really sure why this one isn't aluminum. I'm assuming it has something to do with the strength perhaps. But this is the version that comes with the tabs that go into a rail system on a truck. Now, you may be wondering, why am I changing from this one to this one? And the reason is because of the rail system. So I have a puck system in my truck. You can see it sitting right out there. Came with a puck system and has a ball I'll put in there. But my previous truck had rails in it. So when we bought the camper, I elected to go with this system and the rails with this Andersen, and I got it at that time. So when I got a different truck a year and a half ago that came with the pucks instead of the rails in it, which I hated the rails in the bed, by the way. Instead of buying this at that time, I went ahead and bought this Kurt adapter hanging right here. This Kurt adapter goes into the pucks like this. You can see it back there. That clips into the pucks on the truck. It's adjustable to be universal with various different puck sizes from GM, Ford, and I believe it also fits Ram. Ram has really, really wide pucks on theirs. Went ahead and took it down and put it on the rail just so you can kind of see what this system looks like. Now, obviously, if you have the rails installed in the bed, you would not need this Kurt adapter. But because I wanted to use the pucks, you have to have this adapter. And you can see it does make it sit up a little bit higher. However, the hitch height, the ball height of the metal, the steel one, is a little lower than the aluminum one. Therefore, it kind of makes up for the added rails that you'd have in your bed. Otherwise, as you can see, the design is pretty much the same with the exception of using steel here instead of the aluminum. You can see the ratings on this one, 20,000 pounds gross trailer weight and 4,500 pound tongue weight. And on the Ultimate is actually 24,000 pounds trailer gross weight and 4,500 pounds hitch weight. Now, my camper only weighs about 11,000 pounds loaded, so I'm not going to get into a debate of, the crushing and the failures that people like to point out on these hitches. I think there's typically more to the story than what you like to see on the internet. I deal with engineers and engineering every day of my life with my career, so you always know that there's reasons things happen. I'm not saying Andersen in general isn't potentially responsible for any of that, but one thing they did take into account is they claim they re-engineered this third gen one to be a little more stout. It is not as wide as the other one, 6 inches less in width. You can kind of see, I believe the other one was 6 inches wider than this one. So that's one of the bigger differences in it. But I have had a previous gen, one that I did a review on. Here's a picture of it in my truck. And I think I actually forgot, lost those videos. But anyway, I did a previous one, and I can tell you that this one is, I think, a little heavier. I'd have to look at the numbers on their website, but this one is definitely more substantial feeling than that one. The center tube mast area has been completely redesigned. It's a different shape, a little bit. It's larger. These plates are a little bit different. They give you a little rubber cutout to grab it, although I think most people probably still just grab it by the tubes here. And I think in general, they probably just reinforced it a little bit more to maybe try to combat some of those other ones. The other thing too is I've read that people criticized it for not following the same SEA standards or the trailer towing testing standards that other hitches abide by. But this one, they plastered it all over their website and their marketing material. So I'm assuming they must have went ahead and tested to the same standards. So they no longer had to so they no longer had to be criticized for not testing to the SAE standards. You can see they even put it on the box. By the way, this is the 3220. So they claim it now meets all the SAE standards, which are the tests that the other hitches abide by, which I think, and I'm just assuming here by looking at the design, could explain a little bit of the reinforcement. So there could be something said for some of the people thinking it was maybe over punching previously, but like I said, it's definitely an upgrade in just first impressions and looks here. So how this one installs, I already told you, it installs in your rail. So it has 4 pins that go through holes right there. And then you put the 4 pins in your rails or the adapter, and that's that. It has 3 holes in the ball to adjust your height up and down. I actually have it on the lowest setting on mine. And that's pretty much your only adjustments you have. You can see it does offset toward the back of the trailer a little bit. So your cab of your truck is on this side and your tailgate is obviously on this side. They both use the exact same red coupler, and I'll go ahead and show you that here in a second. So you do need a tool with this aluminum hitch, while you actually don't need any tools for the steel one to take it in and out. So that is an advantage to keep in mind of the steel one. So you need a 15/16 wrench, and you loosen this bolt, and then you have 2 set screws down there. I'll go ahead and get this taken off. Here, buddy, you want to do this? All right, so the cup adapter is exactly the same on both of them. And really, people see this red version, and then they see some older hitches that has just a block of aluminum. It's my understanding that the block of aluminum is essentially the same, but the newer hitches, and I don't know how new the newer ones, what date they did, but they added this plastic nylon cup here to help allow it to slide down over top of the ball easier. And I will admit, this is really nice for hitching up. It does simplify it quite a bit. You can be off by probably an inch to inch and a half, and you come in like this, and it sits there, and it just, as you lower the trailer, it guides itself onto the ball. You kind of see that. If I were to have it here, you can lower it, and the slickness just allows it to fall in place. Now you can see it's not dropping all the way down. That's because you have to pull this lever, which gets attached to your goose box, like so. So I did that. You can see it is engaged around the ball. No taking that off. So the cool thing about this from my towing perspective versus a traditional fifth wheel hitch where you slide it into the kingpin is this. You can see it has a ball so it can articulate pretty much however it needs to be, which is great for hitching and unhitching on really uneven sites. Going over bumps, there's a lot of trailer movement, so you really don't have binding or squeaking and popping. Because of the kind of nylon, it keeps it pretty quiet. So it really works good. In the year and a half of towing, I've never ever had a problem hitching and unhitching. It always comes off right away, really easy. I do not have a traditional hitch to compare it to, so I can't honestly tell you if I would have had issues with those or not, but I have been in enough campgrounds to see people at a slight incline or an angle, and they kind of fight it a little bit, binding up to unhook or whatever. So that is a potential advantage I see, and one of the reasons I went with this hitch besides the weight. Okay, back to some of the differences. You can see, besides the obvious, the coloring is a little bit different. There's red and gray theme. The other ones are either blue or red, a majority blue on the stickers. So that's your first clue that you have a Gen 3. And I assume that the color differences in the sticker adds, several thousand pounds of capacity to the aluminum as well. So I mentioned that the center tube does appear to be redesigned, and it's a little bit different shape. I think it has some ridges and things in it as opposed to just a tube. I assume this is to ridges and things like that help stiffen and reinforce things. The general design is the same. You have your set bolt up here, which pulls up on the ball that's in your bed of your truck, and you torque that to 60 pounds after it's done. And when you do that, you tighten the set screws. There's set bolts right there, again to 60 pounds. So you do have to have a wrench, torque wrench, and do that every time you want to put it back in your truck. And if you want to pull it, you do have to have a wrench. So what I did is I just ordered a cheap $30 half-inch socket and torque wrench to just keep in my trailer. I do have a really big one that can go up to 300 foot-pounds, but we only need 60, so I just got a smaller one, and I'll just keep that in there. The other big difference is there is a set screw right there for a hex head, and that's a new to this design, so that will take any of the wobble out of the ball. And I actually didn't screw it in or anything, but the ball has very little wobble in it right now, and I just flipped it and it went in smooth, so I'm not sure if that set screw is helping or not. The ball is aluminum, it is not a steel ball. And the other big change was the base. I went on a diet and lost 6 inches in width, and the depth is the exact same. I think it's about 36 inches or so, 33 inches maybe. I do have a tape measure, but you can look it up online. So the savings in width is a pretty big deal to a lot of people, and one of the reasons why I also decided to go with the Gen 3 too, and it was the same price as the regular ones, so why not? Now you can see here, width-wise, it looks like it'll take up about the same footprint, but it will take up a little more bed space. I'm not sure exactly where the ball is in relation to where the pucks would be. Let's go take a look real quick. So you can see why I'm not putting it in the truck and doing that video. So the ball right there does sit forward. It's not centered in the pucks. So let's go back in here and take a look. Just eyeballing it here. If I line the balls up, I line the balls up. If I line the balls up roughly, and where this would attach to the ball in the bed, that's probably pretty much aligned with where the pucks would sit at with this. Anyway, back to the fiery crashes. Obviously, there's tons of these hitches on the road, and like I mentioned earlier, there is always stories or information behind the stories, rather. Everyone kind of shows the same 3 to 5 pictures of the Andersen collapse of the aluminum, which actually, if you look at the engineering reports and those sorts of things, they're designed, the way they're designed are to collapse, to take the force of that and save the occupants in the truck cab. So it is a safety feature. Now, of course, the rebuttal to that is, well, a hitch that weighs 150 pounds won't collapse, period. That may be true, but again, some people, if you're towing 18, 20,000 pounds, I know this says 24, honestly, I'm not gonna put a 20,000 pound trailer probably on one of these hitches. I know many people do, it's rated for it. Many people do it all the time, but my 11,000 pound trailer really has no worries. I mean, it's literally less than half of the weight capacity, and my hitch weight is like 1,600 pounds. So for my situation, there's absolutely no need, no concern whatsoever of these hitches holding up for many, many years for strong, safe towing. And here it is all installed. So all you have to do to put it in and take it out is that tube slips over the ball, and then you put that pin in, and then you start tightening this top nut here, and that's the $30 wrench I got from Amazon. So you tighten that down, it says 60 foot-pounds, set your torque wrench, and then once that's done, you tighten those 2 set screws down to 60 pounds. And then, after you have your ball height set, you would tighten your set screw right here down to take that wiggle out. I'm pretty sure I need it on the lowest setting, but I'm gonna leave it here until I get it hitched up tomorrow in the camper. And here's a shot of it with the bed cover down. You can see there's about 4 inches of clearance between the top of the ball and bed cover, and the ball is on the lowest setting. There's 2 settings. Well, hopefully this video was helpful to everybody. If you haven't, please like and subscribe for other tips and tricks, how-tos and DIY projects for RVing and trucks.